DBS presents CNBC-TV18 India-Singapore Connect.
Hello and welcome to the India-Singapore Connect. I'm Shireen Bhan and we're in conversation with the MD and CEO of DBS Bank India, Surojit. Many thanks for joining us here. Let's talk about this partnership, natural allies, and there's been a lot of amplification of the partnership. But as we look ahead over the next 5 to 10 years, for instance, what do you believe could be the incremental areas of opportunity?
For me, the comment you made about natural ally, actually 3 or 4 layers, but the most important ones are that it's historical. There's lots of history and we could be here forever discussing the history of Singapore and India. There's a lot of cultural linkages. People, various parts of India have gone and settled in Singapore. The diaspora is big. And there's been economic cooperation over the last 30, 40 years, but for many years as well. And I think there's an opportunity to deepen each one of them and not just look at the narrow economic area, but just coming back to which are the sectors at a much more narrower way. I think India is a huge market, and I think that's very important for Singapore. Singapore is a country which in the last 50, 60 years have made progress, which is phenomenal, and across market structures, infrastructure, specific sectors. So I do think some of those play to this natural ally. Take the chemical sector. Singapore has built a huge chemical industry on the back of the fact that it is also a big oil and gas energy center. I think some of that, India is a big exporter of chemicals, wants to do more in specialty chemicals. There is technology, there is people, there is capital, and there is expertise. So I think the chemical sector is clearly an area of growth. Second is India wants to be big in the electronics and the semiconductor space. Singapore has built fabs. It's not only built fabs, it's also built the ecosystem around that. Last 2-3 days, we've been talking to some of the players who want to be big in India. And their biggest challenge is not just bringing the fab itself, but building the ecosystem around that. And I think there, Singapore, both in terms of entrepreneurship, but also the startup, the capital, the whole stack, I think that's a big opportunity. And then finally, around talent. I think whether it's education, technical education, the whole India-Singapore corridor on talent is massive. And then finally, at an individual level, I think India-Singapore provides an opportunity for the aspiring Indian citizen, but also access the world, whether it's travel, but also the diversification of their own wealth. So I think many, many layers.
Yes, many layers. In fact, let's focus specifically on the manufacturing layer because that's a big focus area for the Indian government. And that's an area of opportunity as well, especially as we look at the geopolitical dynamics changing and what it means from a supply chain perspective, a de-risking and a diversification perspective, and how India can be a beneficiary of that. How do you see that playing out?
So I think as you see the manufacturing play, there is obviously a movement or the China plus one. But manufacturing also includes a big supply chain. And I think that's where the cooperation with the broader ASEAN region, Japan, Korea, and through Singapore is a massive opportunity for India-Singapore. Because in the last 10 years that I've been at DBS, one of the biggest theses we have been able to help our customers is to get their procurement done through the Singapore, if you will, window. Because a lot of the procurement hub is in Singapore. And today, as you build manufacturing, corporate after corporate needs to make sure that their own supply chain, as they bring both technology, but also making sure that they can scale up, is effective. And I think that's where Singapore can play a role. And we are seeing that already happening with ASEAN. We've talked about FTAs, etc. But even without that, I think the access to the broader supply chain, and then finally the access to markets, because it's not just India as a market. India is a huge market. But player after player are trying to get their products globalized, getting global branding, making sure 30-40% of their products find access. I think that's where Singapore also plays a key
You
role.
talked about steering DBS Bank India over the past decade now. Given the opportunities that you see specifically as far as your India business is concerned, what do you believe the next 10 years could potentially be in terms of the size of the business and the book here in India?
Yeah, it's always difficult to get down to book sizes. But I think if we are, let's say, the top 5 international banks, and we are probably 15, 16 in terms of our size, in terms of as a private sector bank here. I think we can easily get to top 2 in amongst international banks and top 6 or 7 amongst the private sector banks. That's a concrete way I think about it. Book size is a size dependent on what businesses you grow. And we are growing both our large corporate business and within that our linkages into the SME business and our retail business. And within the retail business, both the mass affluent business, the lending side of our business, but also our wealth business. And again, India, Singapore plays a big role on the wealth side. So I think all of those engines, if they fire, I think we will easily be able to do what I said, be top 2 international banks, top 5 or 7 in amongst the private sector.
Space.
Yeah, I think those are all doable, given what we have built in the last 10 years in terms of the talent. I mean, when I joined, we had 600 people in the bank. Today, we have 7,000 people in the bank. We have another 4,500, 5,000 people in our technology center in Hyderabad. And, a large number of them are supporting our global agenda around AI, ML, around data sciences. So we should be able to benefit from growing the India franchise.
So let me end by asking you, what is the one thing that you're most excited about when we talk about India? You talked about the tech power, which is sort of powering DBS globally as well. But outside of that, what is it that excites you the most about the India story today?
I think our ability to impact what's happening in the country, being able to play a role, not just using technology, but just go beyond just banking. And one of the things that we have always looked at is how can we make impact? So one of the things that I wanted to mention is that last year we agreed to commit about $1 billion over the next Singapore dollars over the next 10 years through expanding our foundation. And a part of that, so about $100 million every year, a part of that will be invested in India or allocated to India. And I think the impact we would like to make beyond just being a larger bank and a better bank is also work with the broader ecosystem and make impact beyond banking. That would be our aim.
Surojit, we wish you the very best of luck with your targets in India, as well as the impact that you hope to create here in this market. But thanks very much, and we wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you so much.
DBS presents CNBC-TV18 India-Singapore Connect.